last year on Tasting Room Radio at the 2018 Whisky Awards and Whisky Festival in Victoria. You'll remember Tish Harcus. She's brand ambassador for Canadian Club, marking 30 years of bringing this whiskey to the world. Canadian Club was a finalist for Canadian Whisky of the Year. Their 41-year-old received the award for Best Connoisseur Whisky Domestic at last night's Canadian Whisky Awards. And they also took home several medals. Welcome back to Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
What were the awards last night, just while they're fresh in your memory?
Our 41-year-old, our Canadian Club 41-year-old walked away with the Connoisseur Whisky of the Year, as you had just said. We got a few more medals for our Canadian Club Classic 12-year-old, Canadian Club Premium. We walked away with a few medals and a nice award.
What are your expectations? I mean, do you expect to win? Do you expect to place? And what does it mean to you?
Yes, we do. I mean, not trying to sound like, we are the only great whiskey out there, Canadian whiskey out there. We are certainly the oldest. Last year, we launched the 40-year-old, as you know, and this year we broke our own record, releasing the 41-year-old. So, that's a long time. That's something that Canadian distillers has never seen before. And certainly, when you think about the price point of this bottle at $300 for a 41-year-old, it really cost us closer to $3,000 between the insurance and the angel share and on so on
and the packaging.
And the packaging.
Comparable 41-year-olds. Like, give us an example.
Well, as far as Canadian, there is no other 41-year-old Canadian whiskey.
How about around the world?
Scotch. You have Scotch, and so Scotch and Canadian whiskey totally different. Scotch is all smoky and peaty, and you're going to pay $5,000 for a 41-year-old Scotch. Canadian whiskey, we just can't ask that for it. But the whiskey itself is just beautiful. It's been sleeping for 41 years.
I hate to ask this question, but I got to ask this:
Yeah.
Would you, if you could, ask that price?
Oh, absolutely, sure. Actually, I did. I said to management, this is what we should charge, and they went, oh, can't do that, Tish, can't do that. So, anyways, happy to say that this product, again, Canadians, U.S. are just screaming for it. And we made it, last year's 40-year-old was just for Canada. This year we released some of the 41-year-old into the United States. And so lots of good things happening with Canadian Club, not just in Canada, but in the U.S., Japan, Australia. It's great.
Where was this whiskey hiding?
It was hiding in our warehouse. It was hiding in our warehouse and being babysat, lots of labor, looking after it, making sure it was just coddled for 41 years.
Somebody told me a story, I don't know if it was wine or it was here, but somebody said they purposely hid the barrels, hid what they didn't want to touch behind other stuff. They just... It was like they crammed it into a corner and came back 7 years later, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you have to do that, otherwise you're going to be tampering with it.
Well, here's the thing: because there's a term called the barrels have gone skunky, and it's a terrible word, but that's what it is, and that's when it hasn't been looked after, it hasn't been re-gauged from barrel to barrel. We lose 3% per year per barrel to angel share. So, and as the years get longer, we lose more. It goes up to 4%, 5%. So what you have to do is you can't just let them sleep by themselves. You got to tap up each barrel. So we start out with, say, 250,000 barrels, and we're left with probably 150,000. Because the angels have drank everything.
Tell me the difference between the 40 of last year and the 41 this year.
Okay, great question. So 40 last year, I went out and I stole the whiskey at 60 ABV, and we brought it down to 45 ABV and bottled it just like that. No coloring added, no nothing. But what we're trying to do is we're creating the Chronicles. It's called the CC Chronicles, Water of Windsor. And with this one, the 41-year-old, we added some aged sherry, some aged cognac, and a little bit of aged Canadian rye to it.
Is that for nose or palate?
Both.
Yeah.
Both, actually, yeah. So the Chronicles, this is the first of the Chronicles. We're going to do 42. I'm already working on it. It's fabulous. I didn't think we could do anything better than 40 and 41, but I think 42 is working on 43, 44, 45. We're going to stop and hold off until 50. But each one of these whiskeys is going to be slightly different than the previous one. So it's not just going to be another You're older. It's going to be. We're gonna tweak it a tiny little bit.
Tell me about here's a subject I know you love. I know it for a fact. It'll warm your heart. Canadian Club's place in the world of whiskey worldwide.
Yes. Well, we are the largest distributed Canadian whiskey in the world. As far as global, we're global.
Yep.
Our number one country for sales right now is Australia. And they actually have Canadian Club Premium and Ginger Ale on the tap. It's like a beer. It's incredible. And Japan, it's flowing, and the UK, it's flowing. So it's in every country around the world. So that is the great thing about Canadian Club. This year we celebrated 161 years.
Do you think there was a time when we were being taken for granted, that we simply were not showing up around the world?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So the heyday for Canadian Club whiskey was 1950s, 1960s. Corporate, after the war was over, after the Great Depression and all that kind of stuff, our brand grew so fast. We were over 4 million cases alone in the U.S., and everybody just loved it. James Bond had it in the movies. Mad Men were there, and so it was the number one whiskey. And then in the early 1980s, flavored vodkas came around, and single malt scotches became real popular in North America, and we started to lose a little bit. That's when we started to add to the portfolio. So now we have a portfolio with about 8 different brands in it. So it's not just CC Premium anymore.
Okay, she is Tish Harcus, and she is Canadian Club right here, right now. Here's the best thing of all. She's going to reveal the bottle for us, and then we're going to try. Can we try it?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
Beautiful
first of all, the package.
And
yes.
yeah, the packaging is great. Beautiful, nice velvet bag, and
Man.
Sorry. Whiskey style decanter bottle. We bought this glass from Mexico. Now the reason, with our 20-year-old, we always put, one of 25,000 bottles. We didn't have to do that. Again, just like the 40-year-old last year, every bottle is hand etched, so every bottle is unique.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is our 41-year-old, sorry, and highest grade cork that you can buy. Okay, and here you go, my dear.
That's you.
Okay.
Thank you. One more thing.
Perfect.
And truly, here's my best part. Put that cork back in and pull it for me.
Yes.
Ready? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Isn't that just the greatest sound?
It's fantastic. What do we want to smell on the nose? What do we want to taste in the mouth?
This is what we're going to do. So we did get Jim Murray, the guy that writes the Whiskey Bible every year. He's an expert. He gave this one 97 points out of 100. He is so impressed with this whiskey, it's unbelievable. So we won that, and actually I learned the Murray method of whiskey tasting, and it's completely different than what I've known for the past 30 years. You hold your head straight, because if you put your nose in too far, you're going to get all the alcohols. Okay, and I've always been swirling, and don't swirl a couple of times and then you're done. Hold your head straight, don't forget to part your lips, breathe in. Oh, heaven.
So you breathe in through your nose and mouth.
Yes, well, you part your lips when you're breathing in. So otherwise, if you don't, everything gets stuck right here. Okay, so beautiful nosing. And what do you have here? You have a little bit of spice, lots of vanillas and caramels.
Lots of vanilla. Whoa,
lots of vanilla. Yes, yes. Now this is bottled at 45 ABV.
Yeah.
Most whiskeys, Canadian whiskeys, are bottled at 40 ABV. We bumped it up to 45. Now, just by doing that little bit of swirling, you can see the legs or the tears on your glass, very full-bodied. Cheers. That's another great sound.
By the way, just for the record, no spit buckets ever show up in a whiskey tasting.
That's right. Not when you're doing 41 here, that's for sure.
There'll be no spitting.
Exactly. No, this is... so we're certainly...
What a beautiful
isn't
finish.
That something? And you know what? You cannot fake age. You have to wait 41 years to get a palate like this. The way when you sip it, the way it hits your palate, and then it's just, it's kind of like a bouquet that's opening up all the way down. to finish. So it's an absolute beautiful whiskey. You know, a lot of these other distillers have tried to fake age by adding, you know, extra wood inside the barrels and this. You can't fake this kind of palate, so you have to wait 41 years.
What's ahead? If you were to predict what's ahead in the next 5 years for Canadian whiskey and whiskey in general, what would you think?
I think it's a great time. We're having a huge comeback. And I know when I started 30 years ago, there was some challenge because Canadian whiskeys were considered not as cool as a Scotch or a big bourbon. But we're starting to get a lot of attention. We're starting to get a lot of more respect as far as the distillers go. Canadian distillers are launching products like crazy, like brand new products. So, and the fact that we're launching the oldest Canadian whiskey ever and getting recognized by Jim Murray, that's huge. That's just huge for us. So
we have grain.
Yes.
We have corn.
Yes.
We have sun and wind. We have terroir. How's our water?
We purchase the water from the city of Windsor and then we purify it. It's called the osmosis. So it's kind of strange because there's no taste of this water. It's just wet because we've pulled everything out of it as far as minerals and everything. And this is how we bring the whiskey down to consumable strength, whether it be 45 or 40. Water's very, very important.
Where does it come from? Where's the
City of Windsor. City of Windsor, yes.
I mean, where does it feed from? Is it northern Ontario?
Probably would have been one of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
One of the Great Lakes is feeding it to us. So, yeah, we're purifying it 100%. So,
what are you going to introduce between now and when I see you next year?
42, and I have to say, so CC 42-year-old had a sample of it. It's incredible, and again, I don't know how we just keep making it better and better. Also, this year we launched CC Barley Batch, and that was to commemorate Canadian Club's 160th birthday. Mm-hmm. We're calling that, again, part of the, it's not part of the Chronicles, but it's part of a new collection, and this year we're going to do the same thing.
Are we pouring this at our embassies? Don't you think?
We are.
Don't you think? What a great handshake that is.
Exactly. Great idea.
Come on.
You are the man.
If you have friends in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Again, remind us the price point on this 41.
This one is $299, so $300. And for a 41-year-old whiskey, that's absolutely incredible.
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
Thank you, Tish.
Thank you, Terry.
Sazerac, Allisa Henley, Sazerac of Tennessee, Distiller. Is Sazerac what we see on the bottles, or are we talking about different branding?
So what happened, Tim, Sazerac owns the Buffalo Trace Distillery, which is probably it's our most award-winning distillery in the world. So it's known for its high-end bourbons that it puts out. And 2 years ago, they decided to purchase Tennessee Distillery and wanted to make a new Tennessee whiskey. So myself and Master Distiller John Lunn, they got us both together and said, if you could do whatever you want, what would you want to do? So we created a new recipe and started making a new Tennessee whiskey. And our oldest stuff is about 1.5 years old, so we're probably going to wait another 5 or 6 years before we put it in a bottle, but having fun creating a new brand.
Tell me about the name. Where does it come from?
From the name of the Tennessee Distillery, right now it doesn't have one, which is all the better.
Are you going to do a contest, or do you have ideas?
I'm open to ideas, always. Maybe we can have a drawing for it. But no, right now we literally are creating everything from scratch. So this is the first time that Sazerac as a company has built a distillery and a brand from the ground up with no history. So we bought a piece of land and we're designing a distillery as we speak. We're working on brand names, and then we've got to get into the bottle and label. So it's really fun to create something from scratch.
So that's for future shows and future festivals, obviously.
Yes.
So tell us about Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, so like I said, Buffalo Trace is the world's most award-winning distillery. It's located in Frankfort, Kentucky. It's very historic, a lot of history there. It's one of the few distilleries that was open during Prohibition. So it was actually making whiskey during Prohibition, and the only way you could get it is with a prescription.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of sick people.
So it's interesting because in Napa, for example, there are some wineries that were called ghost wineries. some were just left to go to seed. But if you were a ghost winery, you could make a wine for church ceremonies, for example. So how did the distillery survive?
It was one of the few that was...
Medicine?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, right? It was one of the few that was allowed to do that, and like I said, there was a lot of sick people around. Everybody had a cough and needed some whiskey, so that was the only way you could get it.
That is so cool. Politics, love that. And it survived and thrived. How long did that take to come out of that?
Yeah, so Prohibition ended in the late 30s, and it's been operating. So it's been operating continuously for over 200 years. So when I say the history is really deep there, it is. And we do a great job there of honoring the tradition, because there's a lot of tradition there. But we embrace the change, and we're always looking for the next best thing. And Harlan Wheatley, who's the master distiller, and Drew Mayville is their master blender. They work together to create. They're always innovating and trying new things, looking for the holy grail of whiskey, they call it. So
given one of those creative licenses that comes along in a lifetime saying, what do you want to do? What did you decide you wanted to do?
Well, I could tell you, but I'd have to tell
you.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. Okay.
No.
Can you tease us?
I'm teasing. No. So, yeah, I mean, it was great. We, John, the other distiller I was mentioning, we've worked together for 14 years now, all making Tennessee whiskey. So we were really excited to kind of start creating, our own legacy. It's kind of cool to think that 100 years from now, somebody will be talking about what we've created. So to be given the freedom to do that, it's been really nice.
Allisa, you've probably heard enough conversations around the Victoria Whiskey Festival about how competitive and how charged the Canadians are about their whiskey. But Tennessee, it's just like it's a religion. How many are there? How competitive is it? How big is the business?
Tennessee whiskey it's a different animal. Everyone knows who Jack Daniels is. George Dickel is another big one. That's where John and I came from. I was at George Dickel for 12 years before I moved to Sazerac, and I've been with him for 2 years now. So not a lot of competition in that market. But I think just to have another American whiskey in general, not necessarily specific Tennessee, but just to have another great American whiskey to add to the Buffalo Trace portfolio and Sazerac portfolio will be great.
In the branding, is Tennessee important? Like, do you have to tell them exactly where their whiskeys are coming from?
I mean, for me, being a Tennessean, being born and raised, I'm really proud. I want to tell them where it's from.
Sure.
It's going to be made in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and I want to tell people all about it. I think it's good to educate people that, what's different from Tennessee whiskey and bourbon and Scotch and Irish whiskey. It's just great to have another American whiskey.
How'd you get started? Who turned the corner for you?
It is crazy. So my background, it's interesting being in a distiller, my background is not chemistry. So I do not have a chemical background. But I have an MBA in business and marketing, and George Dickel, who's part of Diageo, they came to me and said, we want to create a tourist experience at our distillery. Would you be open to creating it? And it was in my hometown, and I was like, well, sure, that sounds like fun. And I got into it, and I thought, well, you got to have a tour, and I had to write a script, and I knew nothing about making whiskey. So that's initially what sparked my interest to learn about the details of it. And I was just very fortunate. I was there for 12 years. I worked with guys that had been there for 30, 40 years. And I just took the initiative myself to kind of get out there and get dirty with it, so to speak, and just learn about everything that was going on, the nuances of each step. And that just kind of led up into me being the distiller today. So.
I love that. I love that. In the wine business, I've seen the rise. We've done stories of women in the wine business, slowly but surely, really starting to make a real impact on wine, certainly in Canada and around the world. What about whiskey?
What impact?
Well, I mean, how many other women are you seeing in this business doing what you're doing?
I think, there's more than people think. I think some people, when they look at whiskey, they automatically go to men. But there's more women around than you think. And there have been from the beginning, even in history. As you look back through the history of whiskey, there's always been a woman somewhere. But I think I see a lot of craft distilleries that have women running things, and it's refreshing. I honestly, though, believe as long as, I don't think it matters if you're male or female, as long as you're making a good product at the end of the day, I don't think people really care. They
Well, you
just
did
want
take the
something
next
good to
question
drink.
right out of my mouth, and that is, tell me who's leading the whiskey buying these days? Is it men or women?
It's funny. We always say our target customer is male, but we know that women tell the man what to do. That's what my husband says.
Yeah.
You tell me what to buy, and I just go buy it. But I do think it's both. I think we're seeing. I personally, in my 14 years, I'm seeing more women in it today than 14 years ago, even. And it's a lot of interest. I think with the younger generation, they're very curious, and they want to venture out and discover new things, and they want to know all the details. They want to know everything about it.
I know you'll like this. Tell me about the nose and palate of Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo Trace. So that's the flagship bourbon. They launched it in 1999. And for me, it's about an 8-year-old whiskey. And for me, I think that's kind of a sweet spot in aging where you can get some really powerful flavors, like the vanilla and caramel come through really strong. But the oak it hasn't been in the barrel long enough that the oak kind of takes over those flavors. So it's a nice kind of balance for me. I think the Buffalo Trace, it's got a great, like I said, the vanilla and caramel comes through really strong. It's great just to sip on. It's smooth enough to do that. But at 90 proof, at 45 ABV, it holds up in a cocktail really nice. So I think it's a very versatile whiskey.
Do you know your Canadian price point?
I don't. I'm from Tennessee. I can tell you how much it costs in Tennessee.
Yeah, how much in Tennessee?
It's about $27,
All right.
$25,
$40 bucks?
$27.
35,
I don't know
40
how
bucks?
to translate
No,
that.
that's
Sounds
okay.
good to me.
But I won't be the last person to ask you that.
I will say it's a very affordable.
Yeah.
And that's really throughout the whole Sazerac portfolio. We want people to enjoy it, and we want to make it available to them. So we try to price our whiskeys accordingly.
Thank you, Allisa.
You're welcome. Thank you.